we can have two choices at this point: the opportunity to focus on one point and what the past is the past, or we can choose to see what we could and should have in the future.
Joining us now, she's the head coach of Racing Louisville and last season's NWSL Coach of the Year. A former pro player, she suited up for Reign FC in the NWSL, the Western New York Flash and Washington Freedom in the WPS, as well as teams in Australia, Japan, Finland. A Moreno Valley, California native, graduate of the University of Miami, mom of humans and dogs. She got Louisville off the schneid and into the playoffs last year, becoming the first person in NWSL history to reach the playoffs as both a player and a head coach. It's Bev Yanez. Hi, Bev.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I want to ask, when you won Coach of the Year last year, you mentioned in your speech that you had a chance to create an identity last year, and you did it in short order. So how different or the same do you think this year's identity is?
Yeah, look, the learnings from 2024 into 2025 and where we spent our attention as a tech staff coming into the 2025 season, you can never predict either how quickly it will come together, if you've got the right pieces in the right place. But we spent a lot of time assessing the type of characters that we were bringing into the environment, the type of characters that we had, and built really more of a cultural foundation, and kind of went around that cultural foundation to create buy-in from a style of play perspective. We were very excited with the group that we had going into 2025 and didn't expect for it to click so great. Obviously, in that you have your ups and downs. That's life, that's football, that's sport. So it was not easy by any means, and it was not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But coming out of 2025, obviously, with that identity piece, with that strong cultural foundation, coming into this year, a big piece that we've discussed now from 2025 to 2026 is what type of evolution do we have now within it, right? We know from a goal setting perspective and coming into preseason with the group, we know we can't do the same things and expect the same results. We have to step it up a notch in a lot of capacities. And I think that's been our biggest focus coming in this year is what do we look like in those evolution pieces in reference to our identity, and focusing in on that and continuing to create buy-in from there.
You mentioned the chemistry and getting everyone to sort of get to know each other and be a part of this team. I listened to another interview you did, and you had this great line. I think you had heard it from someone else, that men battle each other in order to bond, and women like to bond in order to go into battle. And so that feels like it was probably very intentional for you to make sure you worked on team chemistry and them wanting to work together before maybe even getting to all the soccer stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, focused on intentionally putting those pieces in place where they best fit, right? Was it a pre-training meeting, and what type of topic would it be? How interactive was it going to be within the group? And we came to a position, was it last year, end of last year, maybe start of this year, where we got little whiteboards, little erasers, and little markers. So when we do our interactive activities in those pre-training meetings, or from a set piece recap perspective, and we're adding in some kind of cultural interactive activity, or any opportunity to check for kind of understanding within the style of play, we try to be very interactive with it, allow players to have a voice, feel valued, feel heard, but feel like they're a part of the process. And I think a lot of that reflection has been what my experiences have been as a player, and kind of the coaches that I felt, I enjoyed playing for. And that's kind of the outlook that I take in this role and what my leadership is. And I think one big key piece from 2024 to 2025 was I felt that I was not authentic to who I was and what my personality was. I felt like I had to be a certain way as a head coach to have the respect and understanding that everybody saw me as a head coach. And it led me to an unauthentic state, in my opinion, of who I truly am as a person, which is I like to perceive the world. I like to perceive the industry as the glass half full. And so when I am putting things in place, I'm trying to find like-minded people that know, hey, I can have an impact in this game, but there's more that I can give, and I want to give more, right? And it's really funny being in this role now and having an opportunity to actually assess who I am, what type of leadership I do have very potentially naturally, and then from my experiences and kind of putting all those pieces together. And I think, it's often looked as like, you can't be a nice head coach, right? If you're a head coach, you're a head coach, right? Like, you're very demanding, that's how it's perceived. And I clashed a lot with that from the start because it's not really my style. And I've been in a much better position now, having a bit more experience to embrace actually who I am in the role, and that it doesn't have to be that way. That's maybe how we perceive it. So
it's
been
changing
really
a
fun.
bit.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
been
good.
really fun to learn more about myself through the role, and learn more about how I could be a better leader, but still true to who I am.
Well, and if you have success doing it that way, then you get to help change the narrative.
Yeah.
I want to get to how you got into coaching and sort of found your way as a coach and what kind of leader you want to be. But I quickly want to ask first, the whiteboards, that's so that players can express something, but maybe not disrupt and interrupt, and then you can get to them if you want within the flow. Is that why you use those?
Yeah, and it's just an opportunity to write down, okay, one thing that we've done in the past, for example, is, okay, get out your whiteboards, we'll show a picture, and write down all the blue things that you see in the picture, okay? And we're going to flash it really quickly, and then we're going to shut it off. So it comes up, and then everybody's scribbling it and writing it down. And then, okay, done, hold up your boards. And so everyone's like, ooh, how many blue things did everybody get, And then we said, did anyone see the yellow thing? And everyone's like, what? And it's whatever you spend your attention on is how you will perceive things. You've missed the yellow thing because we're all focused on the blue thing. So just being intentional about where and how we can relate things to sport, where and how we can grow as a group, where and how we can continue to change perspective. What I've realized through all of this is, how they perceive themselves in the environment is what we're saying about the environment 24/7. So if I can get them to talk about it instead of it being well, coach thinks this, now it's oh, my peer thinks this. My colleague thinks this. This is truly who we are, is a much different feel than somebody just in a leadership position that gets a platform to speak consistently, to say that this is who we are, right? So it's more of that. It's more of those interactive pieces. But I want it to be authentic to them. I don't want it to feel forced. I don't want it to feel she's trying to lead us to this narrative. So I'm hopeful that the players
team building
feel that.
Exercises can feel very corny unless it works. But then if it does work, you do get buy-in in a way that's very different from top-down leadership.
100%.
It's everybody kind of co-leading. As far as this season goes, kind of a slow start. You're still looking for your first win. What have you seen from your team in the first couple games?
We've walked away from each game with a little bit of a learning. And I feel like what we've addressed throughout that week and what we've put into place that following match has been very exciting. But what I mean by that is we can have two choices at this point: the opportunity to focus on one point and what the past is the past, or we can choose to see what we could and should have in the future. And I think I'd feel in a much different position if I didn't feel like the learnings and the things we discussed have not gotten better through those 4 matches. But I feel very confident in the space that we have improved. We've talked about things, and I think essentially we're building our toolbox at this point, that when we do become challenged in multiple different ways and do have the pressure through mid-season towards the tail end of season, that we feel prepared. And I think that's the most important thing. I also think it's really important to understand that nobody's journey is the same and nobody's journey is different. You saw Gotham do it last year where they sat on the table and went to win the whole thing.
You're at the international break through April 24th. Do you have a specific focus you're going to have in practice?
We're in the position right now with 2 players out of the environment. I'm so excited for those 2 players to be in their respective national team environments. But yeah, I feel like we have a good core group, an opportunity to potentially get some injuries back during this time frame, an opportunity, to get a game in next week, push a little bit here, give some break, some time for reflection, some time to just remove yourself from the game. That's what we live, breathe, and go by every single day. So a chance to remove ourselves, get some good family, friends, time in is going to be really important for us. But ramping back up, pushing, and doing everything we can during this break, having the majority of our group together.
Yeah, you've got a couple players who leave. And I mean, particularly if you're going to play under Emma Hayes, there's probably a lot of belief that they're going to learn some great things and they're going to be led very well. But you still have to think about, what are they being taught or expected to do that might be different from what they're being told here? How do you balance that? And how do you make sure the players understand and have enough communication between their national team and you to know what they bring back to you will make them better within racing, as opposed to feeling conflicted about messages they've gotten about their role or what they should work on?
Absolutely. And I think, look, I have the utmost respect for Emma Hayes. I think what she's done is incredible. I think who she is an amazing person. I've known her for a long time now, back when she was with Chicago Red Stars at that time, right? And what she's been able to do at Chelsea, and now proving what she can do at the national team level. I have so much respect for her, especially as a female in this industry. They are incredibly communicative about, what they're doing, what they're talking about, their communication to the players. So excited for what they continue to do. But yeah, for me, it's been no problem at all. The communication's
Good.
been there, and we feel very confident in all of those spaces.
You were on the pitch not long ago. You were just playing right up until 2020 when you retired. You went right to coaching, 2021 assistant with Gotham. Then you were an assistant with Racing before becoming the head coach in 2024. What are some of the most meaningful ways that your time playing in this league influenced how you now coach in this league?
Yeah, the fun underlying fact to all of that is I actually played and coached at the same time, because back when I played, it was only a 6 to 7 month season, and we were only paid during that time frame. So forced to find something on the side. There was conversation about me being a barista at one point. Kind of gave that up, which I'm glad I did. But came into this kind of private lesson, really enjoyed the small details to the game, really enjoy the small detail to positional profiles. So thought, wow, this is something I'd like to explore. So way back when I was playing, I was coaching full time. I mean, I'm running 3 to 4 sessions after every training day. In the off season, the only way I could stay in Seattle was to run my business full time and be paid during that time, because I had to then pay for a gym membership. Much different world, even though you're saying 2020 and 6 years ago, it was a much different world. I left the game maybe making $28,000 a year, even back then. So I feel like I knew the calling. When the calling would come, I was not aware of, but I knew at that point, everything that I was teaching these 16-year-old girls, these 15-year-old boys, I was still wanting from my game, right? Something as simple as scanning, checking to receive, which foot you're playing. So I really enjoyed that aspect of, I felt like I was growing and becoming a better player through coaching these young individuals, analyzing the game, running tactical analysis within the business, et cetera. That the calling came when I was ready to start a family and had to pick at that point, because there was no other option. So chose to start a family, and knew at that point I'm putting the boots up. And this has been a passion of mine for so long. So very grateful to say that I was very passionate about what I did, and retired from the game, and get to do a very similar passion in a different capacity. But it's always been in me. I've always enjoyed the connections, not only with people, because it is a people industry, but also the deep dive into the game, all the game's intricacies, not only from an individual standpoint, but how to get a group to want to play together and execute those beliefs in a style that we know that they're capable of. So it's definitely always been there for sure.
Yeah. It's sort of a wild story, actually, about one of the sparks for coaching for you was when you were in Japan. So you're all set to play for Sky Blue for another season when the Women's Professional Soccer League folds. You're just a couple weeks out from the start of the season, but tickets and hotel rooms have already been bought for this preseason trip to Japan. So a bunch of you end up going. The team says, we already have this. We can't get the money back. We send you out there, and you get called into camp for a Japanese team while you're out there. You end up on the roster. You fly your fiance out. And while you're there, you realize that you're behind on understanding a lot of technical stuff, a lot of the ways that they see the game. And you said in an interview that that was sort of one of the first sparks for I kind of want to maybe get into this coaching thing as I'm watching how they are coaching their players differently.
Yeah, absolutely. You explained it perfectly to the T. The players were coaching me. I couldn't speak Japanese. The coach didn't speak English. There was one other American player alongside me during that time, out of a roster of maybe 25, 26 players. One particular individual spoke English as well from her time spent over here in the US. But I was really forced for the first time to assess, who am I? What am I good at? Because I didn't have a coach to get any sort of feedback from, right? But respected the way he ran the sessions, respect the challenges that he presented to us individually and collectively, to the point that I'm like, wow, I feel so behind from my technical and tactical understanding of the game. But I was coached after every session. We had magnets with our faces on them. And after every session, they would move my magnet and say, basically, this is what we want from you. And I understood it through that, and then also understood it through a passing pattern. I had to put myself 3 players back, assess 1 touch there, 2 touch there. Okay, now it's round 2. What's going to change? I had to step back and look at, because I couldn't ask, I couldn't explain, hey, what's changed here, So I really learned a lot about myself, how to be a little bit more observational, how to sit back and understand the expectations, but it almost gave me a different lens and a view to the game that I could see what was going on and then see myself within the environment. And then also understand, that was the first time I was really challenged in my career to play a different position. I grew up playing midfield, whether it was the 6 or the 10 more predominantly, and then was asked to play the 9 during my time there. So played a different position, didn't have much belief in my ability to be able to do that. And 2 months in, changed my mentality, committed to the position, and ended up being the first foreign player to ever win a golden boot in the league. So I realized,
not too bad.
Yeah, not too, yeah, but I realized through that experience how much those types of motivations, those pieces essentially like meant to me as a player. And now reflecting, I try and look at that a lot in my leadership position now.
Yeah, I mean, wanting to give that to other players, wanting to open up the way they see the game, kind of like open the aperture and let in a little bit more light on all the different aspects that you've learned yourself. You also got to go through this U.S. soccer program. You were one of the first people to benefit from this initiative that U.S. soccer did with the NWSL, allowing current and former players to enroll in a C license coaching class. And you did that in 2018. Then in 2021, another scholarship via a similar initiative, this time for a B license coaching class. Did those programs sort of give the bridge that you needed from the spark in Japan to the individual coaching you were doing while playing to being able to pick up as a coach right after you left the league?
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible platform that I got to be a part of, an incredible opportunity. I think it gave me the chance to say, like, this is something I'm passionate about, but like, am I like good at it? Is this something I could like actually pursue? It gave me the environment to test kind of my communication skills, my leadership skills, my ability to develop a session, my ability to make sure that that session had a theme, an outcome. What were its learnings? How do I check for the understanding? It gave me like a totally different perspective. And I think when you're a player and you show up and you see cones laid out, you're very focused on your individual preparation for a training session. You want to walk away, of course, always feeling like, hey, I did my best today, right? And I played well, I trained well today. But you never, ever process, and you could never ask for a player to process what goes into it. I mean, we're discussing every morning where a ball's being passed in from. Are we going to have it alternating so they don't get stuck into receiving the ball from one side, right? Where are they coming in from? Are we going to rotate teams? Are we going to compete for a point in this exercise? What do we want to see from them from an in possession perspective and an out of possession? Who's going to coach what? Who's going to have touch points with certain individuals on them wanting to face forward, play forward? There is so much to it that it's hours and hours and hours of planning, and the players show up and just see a session, and then they decide based off of that, is it a good session or not? And did I train well or not? Right. So changing that whole perspective, but also being able to sit in my position and not expect them to understand something I never thought of. I know they're not going to think of those things. I know there's players that are maybe not passionate about that being a part of their next step in their career at some point. So I think I use a lot of that to understand, again, like why I enjoyed playing, what was it about it that I enjoyed, but also to understand the players a bit more in depth. And I think that's the most extraordinary part about it.
Probably helped while you were playing and certainly made it easy for you to make the transition as soon as you retired. Soccer's coaching license is pretty different from other pro sports, both at domestic and international levels, and also can be very expensive, like thousands of dollars to get these certifications. So what exactly do they teach? Is it more X's and O's? Is it safety and protection? Like what is the majority of what you're getting from those licenses?
Yeah, and then I'll speak a bit more about my recent one from the pro course. And I think the pro course is just understanding a bit more about who you are, right? We have, a guy that a particular individual that comes in and teaches a bit more of like meditation, how to sit in like a nice space, how to understand how to be the best version of yourself. And how to have the clear headspace to be able to, act almost as performers as well, right? A lot of the athletes are seen as the performers, but the coaches have to be in a nice headspace to make the right decisions on whether there's a sub or a tactical change. So seeing us as performers as well, also providing us, opportunities to hear from other people in the business. What have they done? Where did they feel that they got it wrong? What are their learning lessons from that? And I think it was a great opportunity to more focus on who we are, what type of leaders we are, why we are that way. And then the earlier courses are a bit more about like the foundation of a session. What is your primary objective? What is your primary focus? And how are you getting that out of the group? Within that, a bit more of your recognition of periodization. You can't go too hard 4 days in a row. Why would you do a light session? Why would you do a medium session? Why would you do those spaces? What types of X cells, D cells are you looking for versus high speed running? So It's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's based off of each level being a bit more narrowed focus to at the end in that pro course being the highest license, understanding who you are. Now, how do you apply all of that?
Hmm. NWSL sees a lot of coach turnover in the last years. 11 teams out of 16 have had a change in head coach. Does it feel like normal part of pro sports culture, or does the NWSL kind of seem like an outlier to you when it comes to just the frequency of those changes?
No, I think across the board you're seeing it, aren't you? In a lot of different sports, not just football and not, just a specific league. I think, it's really important. I think one of the biggest pieces through the pro course that I learned was they did a big chunk on interviews, the interview process, how to describe who you are, what you would bring to an environment, but also the recognition of like throughout the interview process, who would you be working with? Who is this individual? Is their role within the organization? And I think they did a fantastic job about educating us outside of my experiences currently, and my experiences in the past of, who are you around? What would it look like? What is the expectations for you in this role at this specific club? Everything's different. And I think being very intentional about that is really important to understand. And one of the big things they said in the pro course that I'll never forget was, who would you spend your worst day with? If you can answer that throughout your interview process, that it could potentially help guide you. It's not going to be the end all be all factor, but just, being very intentional about what it looks like to be in the right place.
Who at the team would you spend your worst day with? Meaning like, will you have allies and resources?
Yes,
within the place you're interviewing. Yeah, it sounds like you think that the issue of turnover is as much about potentially the wrong hires to begin with. Like the right questions aren't being asked on either side to set up for success.
Well, I think it's always a mix, isn't it? And then it's always based off asking the right questions. What is success to you? If success is in 3 months' time,
Right,
or is success for you in 4 years' time? This is what you want. You want to be a top 5 club, right? So I think that there's also the understanding of all those pieces and those questions. I have realized the importance of them. You really
shared
need
expectations.
To know. Yeah, shared expectations for sure.
When you led racing to the postseason last year, you were the first American woman at the helm for a playoff team since 2013. How much pride do you take, and maybe how much pressure do you feel in being example of a female presence on the sideline, of player to coach pipeline, of something that a lot of folks clamored for in this league, particularly after the investigations and sort of the uprooting of a lot of old patterns?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very grateful. Didn't know any of these facts until post all of this started coming out. I'm like, wow, I had no idea.
It's nice to be the first and not be aiming for it. It just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that's kind of the outlook that I try to take. You want something so bad in the sense that, I wanted the group to make playoffs for the first time, not because I was at the helm of making playoffs for the first time as a head coach, but because I genuinely believed the group deserved it, right? And you don't often get to say that also is what happens, right? It could be 6 years' time that you say it, but you say for the past 6 years, I've been telling myself they deserve this, right? And I think that's the most important piece to me. I'm not in this industry for accolades. I'm not in this industry because I believe I'm the best at what I do. I still think I have a ton to learn. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to put in the work, but I'm in this industry because I care about these players. I care about their experience. I care about their development. I care about this coaching staff, having the right people around me that someday hopefully have big ambitions and big goals, and being a small percentage of what that growth looks like. And I care a lot about this league. I've been a part of the progressions as a player, and now to be a part of the progressions as a coach is something I value very heavily. So for me, it's never about the pressure. And it sounds very odd because this is a very pressured industry, but it is what it is. It will be what it is. And, I always say, if I get let go tomorrow, they'll find a new head coach in 2 days, right? I am a mother at home and I'm irreplaceable at home. And I want to be true to who I am. I want to lay my head down every night and say, I've given this the best. I'm making the best decisions that I can. And that's all I can say. So I feel very proud in that sense, and I alleviate the pressure because there's going to be people that continue to come along and exceed even more expectations. And I'm just excited to be a part of that and watch those journeys.
Yeah. You mentioned you're just a couple years in as a head coach. Who's your number one call if you have some problem you can't quite get to the root of? some mentor, some longtime coach, someone from the biz that you're like, I need to get a different perspective on this? Who you calling?
Yeah, to be honest, I've got a few of them in the sense that I'd probably reach out to people for different things, different mentors for different things. Someone maybe removed from the game, not necessarily a head coach, would give me like a totally different type of perspective. Potential head coaches that obviously, I've played for. There's an array of individuals, and I don't mean that in the sense of I know a million people, and I'm so grateful to
You're
have all
allowed
the
to.
connections. But more of like I've tried to have genuine connections in the sense of if it's something specific to this area, I know I'd go to this person. If it
Right.
was specific to this area, I'd go to this person. But I think it's important to have that, and
They
be
call it your
confident.
board of directors.
Yeah, there you go.
You need a personal board of
Yeah.
directors that who's going to be the most honest, who's going to be the most supportive, who's going to be the most critical, but it's going to be exactly what I need to hear. Like, you have all of those.
100%.
Do you also see your youth, though, as an advantage? Just a few years older than some of your players, and they know that you were just in their position not long ago.
Yes, but it's a very fine line for me. I think one of the big things I kept telling myself is to not put myself in a position where it's like, when I played, I did this. Like, no one wants to play for a head coach. It's like, oh, I just did this recently. So, hey, try this. I'm very intentional about not saying that, just because I feel like it would annoy me. But yeah, I mean, look, I try to be a relatable type of individual in the way that I speak. I engage the players, but not because I know best. And I think that's really important. I'm a very vulnerable type of leader. And look, in 2024, I'm like, I wasn't. And in 2025, I was vulnerable. And we ended up making history. Now, can I do the same thing again and expect the same results? No, I can't. What is my evolution now as a leader? When to be vulnerable, when to not, when to challenge a bit more, maybe, right? But I'm not claiming to know everything. And I think that was a big thing for me. I really didn't enjoy playing for people that were like, do this. And it's like, but why? And then they didn't want to explain why,
Yep.
right? I'm okay that if I sit up in front and explain and go, yeah, I did say this, but we could probably adjust a bit here and, meet a little bit. You're probably right. There's some things I don't budge on. They know that. I'll say that. There's things I'm not going to budge on, but there's things that I definitely feel that collaboration is really important. And what pieces we're, collaborating on are very important.
I'm so glad that leadership's going in that direction because it just makes sense. And that's what people want to feel respected and a part of it. And then they want to give you your all. And as an athlete, that's what I always wanted from coaches as opposed to just being told what to do.
Yeah.
So it's great that you're helping lead the charge.
I appreciate that.
I'm wondering, understanding what these players are feeling, having just been in their shoes, even though the league has certainly changed a lot in just a couple of years since you retired. What's your pitch to keeping players stateside in the NWSL?
Yeah, I think just a little bit off of that is it's no longer the era of hey, get on the line, go from here to there, and you're not going to get why. You're going to get why. So embrace that and be okay with that. It's not a challenge because they don't think you're good at what you do. They just want more context to understand, and you provide more context. I'm big on over communication and education. Educate them, over communicate them to them, and they go, okay, I'm bought in. I know where we're headed. We're going to be the most fit team in the league, right? And I think that's a big piece of it is embracing that versus resisting it. I really value that in an environment. And I think, look, this is the most competitive league, in my opinion. This is the most competitive league in the world. I think on any given day, you're set up against someone that it could go either way. I think it's quite entertaining to be watching these football matches, to let alone being a head coach of one of the teams in the league. You just never know what to expect. I mean, you saw our last match, 4 PKs in one game. You really don't know. And I think it's because of that. I think continuing to keep that competitive balance is really important. And I think it should continue to attract players here to this league and to the States.
Yeah, I mean, for those who aren't familiar, there's some really great teams across the pond, but then the drop-off is pretty severe. So there's a lot of gimmies and then a handful of really competitive matches. And the NWSL does pride itself on parity, and we are sure seeing that off the top this year with a lot of surprises of where people are sitting on the table early on. What do you make of the high-impact player rule that, obviously NWSL is using in part to keep their talent? How do you think that impacts roster building for teams?
Yeah, look, I think it's an approach right now that the league is taking to continue to assess, obviously with the salary cap that we have, how to keep big talent here in the US. And I'm excited to see what it looks like this year. Obviously, it's first year being rolled out and what that looks like for teams and where the spending and it's just the organization behind the scenes to see where that's distributed, how it's distributed. And yeah, I'm just really curious more than anything to see how it goes this year.
You mentioned getting to be a little bit more of yourself last year and heading into this season and have more of your own leadership style, which you mentioned was glass half full. I thought you were going to say you just like to drop F-bombs and you wanted to be a little bit more of that person and a little bit less of the stereotypical leader. Accidental F-bombs in front of the kids. Are we doing that at home, or have you perfected that like two separate languages depending on where you are thing? Because as a radio host that used to do live radio, who also swears a lot, I really had it down. Like it was never happening on the air, but it was happening all the time off the air.
Yeah, look, I don't know where I've gotten this. I do know my dad for sure. I do know I'm lying. And yeah, I can't, it's happening everywhere. And every time I think I'm going to resist it and pay a bit more attention to it, it's gone. So yeah, it's at home. My husband would prefer it not to be at home. It's at home. It's at work. It's in film. It's everywhere. So yeah, sorry about that.
I believe in a well-placed F-bomb. Sometimes it's the right word for the moment. So I get that.
It
but
just excites everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a period at the end of the sentence or an exclamation where you could use it however you want.
Yeah. No, they do actually say that there's a part of your brain that fires up in moments of using swears because it feels risky.
Oh, I believe
and
it.
so it does impact people differently than any other word. And of course, your viral speech from last year had a lot of them. And then you put the earmuffs on the kid in the huddle, which I appreciated. You mentioned your husband. You've been married to your high school sweetheart. I mean, dating since 14 is such a long time to enjoy someone's company or get super annoyed with them. So what's your secret? What's your secret to meeting someone at 14 and loving them at 37?
Yes. Well, this year we will have been married for 14 years. We will have been together for 24. We dated for about 10 years before we got married back in 2012, before leaving to Japan. But yeah, we were a big fan of each other's dreams. He wanted to play professional soccer. I did too. That was where we first hit it off in like 6th period PE, playing soccer every day of the week with our friends, 2 shoes as goals on the end on the grass. And then street lights came on. It was time to go home, right? Back in that type of setting. And it was always like, you go to the college you feels best for you. I'm going to go to the college I feels best for me. And if things continue to work, it was meant to be. And we always believed in that. And I think ultimately we were best friends. And I think that's lost a little bit in today's world is we're best friends first. We have an amazing relationship. We laugh all the time together. He's literally my best friend. And I also am very much so in love with him. So the foundation of our relationship has always been very strong. And to see him as a dad, my gosh, to 2 girls. I mean, he is a girl dad. He is the best dad in the world. To watch him interact and how much those girls love him. Look, I'm just so grateful. He gave up his, pursuit of the playing professionally back in about 2010 or so. And joined my journey and has been my support system since then. So I wouldn't be here without him. I wouldn't be who I am without him. So to continue to say that and to be able to, just enjoy our marriage for the rest of our lives. I'm so excited. And every year it's exciting for me. It doesn't ever feel old.
Wow, that's amazing. You've also opened up about some of the struggles you and your husband have had, suffering miscarriages last summer and the summer before. Were you surprised by how much that vulnerability and honesty publicly kind of became a connection point, gave an opportunity for people to offer you love and support too?
100%. So taken back. Well, first it was like, do you want to say something? Do you not? And I'm like, no, I want people to know. I want people to know that I'm struggling. I feel so alone. I feel so hurt. I was so shocked, couldn't believe it. We cried for days. And then after, of course, the second one, you're like, no way. I thought, okay, maybe, it wasn't meant to be last time. And now 2 times I'm so distraught. I'm so confused. I'm so alone. And I think through sharing it, I realized, wow, this has happened to so many people. And in a time that felt so dark for me, has been so dark for so many people. And we're just not supposed to talk about it. I don't think it's a thing to speak about it. And I realized that, people would stop me, men, women would stop me and say, we lost 2 before we had our 3rd. We've never had kids, unfortunately. And I just realized it's a chance for us to have some commonality. And in today's world where We're searching for what our differences are versus what we have in common. I was so touched. I was so touched that we could be there for one another, support each other, and not ever meet before and share each other's pain. And I think, it was very shocking to me to see how many people have gone through that. And I'm thinking of all of those families that have experienced that, because it's one of the worst feelings in the world of thinking about what could be, that wasn't. So,
yeah, well, it's very brave of you to talk about. And obviously you helped a lot of people doing that. And that's a message across a million different things, right? There's so many other people going through what you're going through, and reaching out and talking about it instead of holding it in is probably going to serve you much better. Before I let you go, you're about 3 years in Louisville. So I'm going to do a Louisville speed round for you.
Oh, is this like about the city? Like what I know about the city?
It's not a quiz so much. There's only one that's a
okay.
quiz. The rest
I'm
is
like,
just opinion.
I barely learned my freeways. Okay.
Well, because we had 2 of your players on last year and they did not know what a Louisville staple was. So I'll just start there.
Okay.
Do you know what a hot brown is?
I did. I saw
What
it
are
on
they
the
doing
menu.
with you down there?
I saw it on the menu and I totally forgot what it was. I just saw it at Lulu on Market.
I don't want you guys to have one. It sounds gross. It's just, every time I've been to Louisville, I get assured that it's very important to the culture there. And yet nobody from Louisville eats them or knows what they are. It's some sort of weird sandwich involving meat, and maybe calling it a hot brown was the first problem.
Okay.
That could be part of it. Okay. Do you have a favorite whiskey?
Yes. I love old fashions now. Never knew. We have like a little bar at home. My husband makes the drinks at home. Probably, oh gosh. Was it called Basil Hayden?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay.
That's probably my favorite right now.
I think all whiskey tastes like fire, but if I had to choose one fire, it would be Angel's Envy. That tastes the least like fire to me.
There you go. You need a cherry, the cherry in there, and you need the old fashioned. You need the big ice cube, the sliver of orange slice. I mean, I'm telling you, once you drink them and you get your simple syrup in there, and you have a good drink, you're like, I understand why people drink these now. Before I didn't understand.
I'm still at like the daiquiri phase.
Okay.
I'll eventually become a grown adult, a grown man, and drink my whiskey.
That for you.
Do you own a fascinator?
No.
Come on. Have you been to 610 Magnolia?
No.
Gosh darn it, Coach. What are you doing? Thinking about football all day?
Getting on the freeway to and from my home in the training facility.
Well, I just sent one of your newest players who just made the transfer to racing to 610 Magnolia with my friend, Chef Edley, Rachel Hill. She had a great meal there. He welcomed her to the city. So if you need a hookup, at some point, have a nice anniversary meal with your husband.
Okay.
Experience some culture in your own city.
Done deal.
I'm
doing it. Thank
Bev,
you.
thanks so much for the time. It was so great talking to you.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me. Take care.